Mandela Rhodes Foundation is celebrating its 20th anniversary, which coincides with the 10th anniversary of the death of the foundation's founding patron, former President Nelson Mandela. Now, since its inception in 2003, the organization has had 622 Mandela Rhodes Scholars from 33 African nations. The CEO of the Mandela Rhodes Foundation, Judy Sikuza, joins us now to talk about the foundation's history, its work and the impact of the scholarship recipients in South Africa and the continent as a whole. So thank you so much for joining us this morning, Judy. What a time. I mean, Mandela Day is just around the corner, so this is the perfect time to celebrate 20 years.
Exactly. Good morning to you, Baron, and the viewers. Indeed, a very important moment, I think, for South Africa, the 10-year passing of our founding president, Nelson Mandela, and the time for us to perhaps reflect on how we have progressed as a country, as a continent, and perhaps as a Mandela Rhodes Foundation, we get to bring a bit of the light and hope in that conversation, because of course we are tasked to build the next generation of exceptional leaders across the continent who can embody the principles and values that President Mandela stood for. And through our masters and honors funding for these young people from across the continent, they come together in a leadership development program and exchange lessons on how we can really think about transforming our continent in a meaningful way.
You touched on a very important point there, you know, basically former President Madiba's legacy. If you take a look as a young leader right now yourself, you know, taking a look at the country's political, socioeconomic landscape, basically, we know even that the ANC Youth League now has sort of revived their existence again as well after how many years? Do you think there's a lack of young leaders in this country, and should more be done to get, you know, young leaders excited again?
It's not a lack. For us, we've seen the talent is really extraordinary out in South Africa and on the continent at large. I think the main kind of paradigm shift, Baron, is how do we begin to see that the voices and perspectives young people bring are actually valid in the tables that matter, where decisions are being made. And obviously that requires a mindset shift, because, you know, the idea that, you know, only the elders get to sit around and make decisions is perhaps an archaic perspective and view. And I think Mr. Mandela's own investment in starting this foundation was actually a testament to his own belief that young people did have a contribution to make. And I think not in a frivolous way. We've got to understand continentally, for example, by 2030, 70% of the continent is going to be under the age of 35. So if we look at it from that perspective, we understand that a majority of young people need to be educated, need to be trained in leadership to actually step up into making those fundamental decisions for our society.
Now, I was talking a bit on the socials, and I saw that you were celebrating in style in New York. Why did you choose that city in particular to start your celebrations there? Of course, you will be celebrating not just here in South Africa, but also some other cities around the world as well. Are there some other cities still lined up for you? And when will you be celebrating here in South Africa? And why also those cities?
Yes. So we chose New York City because, you know, part of our next strategic phase is to say, how do we begin to tap into the broader African diaspora that is based in the US, in the UK, in Europe, and tap into that collective energy? Because I think, as we all know, Mr. Mandela was both very much South African and African, but was a global statesman, and understood that for us to really think about how we can build Africa in becoming an equal citizen of the world, we've got to be able to tap into the resources of those diaspora who actually can galvanize and create a platform at a global sense. So we had our Africa Day event in New York City, which went very well. And then we were, you know, part of the Oxford Rhodes Trust Centenary, 120th rather, celebrations in Oxford, which we went to. So Cape Town this weekend is the grand finale. That's where it's happening. This is where we close it off on Mandela Month, and we kick off tomorrow by actually launching the history of the foundation as part of our 20th celebrations here in Cape Town, a book published in collaboration with Oxford University Press, who's been quite a long-term supporter of our work. And this really will give the public a chance to understand what was the rationale. Why did Mandela say yes to this? What was the pursuit of this? And how have we seen this vision and intention as exemplified by the scholars in the work that they do now?
And now let's talk more about this scholarship, this program. You know, a young person watching this right now, how do they get involved? And also, you know, what's been some of your success stories with young leaders coming out of your structures?
So what we always kind of pride ourselves in our program is that we are actually open to all African students. And we're one of the very few, if not only, scholarships that actually allow for that. So that sense of inclusion, the sense of diversity, the sense that if you're a young person who's looking at your society and saying, I want to contribute, I want to be around like-minded individuals who believe in a world in which we do have agency and feel empowered to be able to make a difference, then this program will be for you. But also you must be ready to be stretched. You know, we all, I think Baron will say, you know, my New Year's resolution is that I want to learn and grow and become a better person. But obviously when you are forced and pushed to actually challenge yourself and look at your shadows, look at what are some of the areas that you need to heal from the past? We also actually create those spaces in our program for our scholars to be able to become those holistic, wholehearted leaders who can actually go into society and step in with real ethic, with real courage, and be willing to be the lone voice, even when you realize that you might be in a position to lose your role and the power that you have. So that's the kind of person we attract. And I think that, you know, we want to be able to kind of looking at some of our alumni who have now been in the past 20 years. I mean, the stories abound. You've got Rachel Nyaranzo Adams, a scholar from Zimbabwe. She founded her own leadership development practitioner after having gone and worked for global companies like McKinsey and Yale University, but said, actually, we've got to do the work to build our own internal capacity. Patrick Ebewo from Nigeria is kind of, you know, heading up the Center for Entrepreneurship Development at Tshwane University and asking the question, how do we think about entrepreneurship as a source that will fuel us as a continent? And then closer to home, Tulani Nkunze, he's a director of student affairs at Safaso Makgato Health Science University. And this is someone who's been involved in student politics, student affairs, and is able to really think through the reality of a student in the modern day context. And I think the list continues around just amazing scholars who have stepped up into senior positions quite early on in their careers. And that's part of what our program does. It will accelerate your growth and development. I myself am a Mandela Rhodes Scholar from 2007 and, you know, was very privileged to be appointed as the CEO of the foundation at the ripe age of 33. Now with my toddler, and I'm heading towards 40, I'm already starting to feel like I'm graying too quickly.
Very lastly, before I say goodbye to you, let's talk about, you know, unfortunately it is sad news, the passing of one of your scholars, Dr. Bongo Musa Zuma. Did you know him personally? And, you know, he came out of your structures as well. You mentioned all of those other names now as well, but he was definitely one of those people that benefited from the Mandela Rhodes Foundation.
Yeah. So Bonga was actually the year before me. So he was a senior in my year, and I was able to engage with him definitely throughout the time I've been with the foundation. And yeah, I always found him to be someone who was quite thoughtful, quite reflective, but also was not shy to say things that maybe would challenge and push the boundaries in the room and get the debates and conversations going around issues of diversity. And, you know, I remember we'd have some long nights discussing, you know, patriarchy, how it plays out, the role of men in shifting those dynamics, and that it's not women's role. And I think, yeah, looking at, you know, Bonga as an example, and we can think about many other scholars as well, the essence of the program was really finding these incredible young people who were doing amazing work and had the talent and potential to be instrumental. And so his death was very much a shock in our community, but also I think has motivated those of us who are still here to say, how do we use, as Mary Oliver says, our one wild, precious life?
Thank you so much, Judy, for joining us this morning. Of course, the Mandela Rhodes Foundation celebrating 20 years of existence. What a way to celebrate, and there will be ending of those celebrations this weekend in Cape Town. We've got a lot more happening on the show, so do stay tuned with us here on Newslink, DSTV channel 403.